Welcome to another episode of the Clinical Career Collective S.O.A.P News. For those of you who are new to us and our mission, C3 is a professional development community for the mental health professional at large. We are here to support you so that you can learn, advance, and become the clinician the world needs now. You can find us on our website, www.clinicalcareercollective.com, or our YouTube channel, S.O.A.P News, and of course, we are extending an invitation to join our C3 Facebook page at Clinical, the number 2 Professional, that's Clinical 2 Professional, and to check out our LinkedIn specialty page at the Clinical Career Collective. Today's SOAP note is all about gender bias in AI technology. If you don't know me, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Amity Cooper, your host and creator of the SOAP News. As a trained clinician, I really benefited from applying the SOAP note method in my practice. So when I started C3, I thought it would be a really fun way to craft a blog series that incorporated the same principles as the handy SOAP note. What better way to get updates, tips, inspiration, and reviews about relevant, on-point clinical and business topics affecting our industry today? So let's get into it. Today, in the field of artificial intelligence, is heavily male-dominated. Although it seems like there are a number of strong female leaders that are coming out and paving the way for other women, it is still kind of an old boys club. There is a fear that our interventions and artificial intelligence will supersede us, that it will take over humanity. But our concern shouldn't really be around these advancements that are potentially going to take over. Instead, we need to refocus on the development and constructs of how these new AI systems are created and built. That is why it's crucial to have gender balance and encourage the female engagement in this field from the very beginning. After all, in order for that technology to reach its optimal potential, diversity is a must. So that's why in her 2019 TED Talk, Gunne Kazmimzad, a AI researcher, and I'm so sorry if I butchered her name, questions why in the 21st century, as the world tries to expand into space, Google, for example, is still struggling to identify gender and racial differences. You can watch her full YouTube TED Talk here at the link that we'll provide in the show notes. The reason is pretty plain, according to Kazimzad. AI is biased because we as humans are biased. Let's get into some observations here. When we're talking about AI and new technology, we're entering really a male-dominated field, and it can feel very daunting and quite challenging, especially for women and people of color. Introducing female connotations in a male-dominated industry like pitching AI to detect emotions and technology is really a relatively new thing. Stepping into a cutthroat industry as the underdog can be terrifying, and carving out a niche in AI design as a woman is an uphill battle. From the September 30th, 2020 Wall Street Journal article, Affectiva, a startup executive named Rana El-Kaloubi, was careful to bring up the E word, which is referred to as emotions, in her research for funding because it was not a typical language lexicon of the heavily male-dominated startup culture. The deficit of women and racial diversity within this field greatly affects the accuracy and equitability of our core foundational data set. Based on the data accumulated, it is very clear that AI systems are built on biased machine learning programs and algorithms. On a positive note, times are changing. This last decade has brought new awareness and cultural sensitivity to the industry. Companies like Twitter, Google, and Facebook have been called to task to examine these noticeable inequalities. and appropriate actions can be implemented to solve these issues from the get-go. Women are now changing the landscape of technology because they are finally granted positions within the corporate culture to challenge and bring to light which has been unduly forgotten, unseen, and quite frankly lost in translation. An example of this is CEO and co-founder Kieran Snyder of Texito notes that given AI required people to grapple with these issues of fairness and representation in data, people who've been outnumbered are more likely to have a sense of why an accurate and equitable data set is important. In these last 7 to 10 years, there have been various studies on women's roles in corporate America. Data shows a growth rate in the field of technology, which is quite exciting. And we've listed off a couple of these research studies, specifically the 2015 partnership study between McKinsey and the leanin.org organization have really taken to task and brought to light significant milestones amongst the female executives in corporate America. And noted here, according to the report of PitchBook and All Raise, there have been over 3,000 venture capitalist deals that involve companies with at least one female founder compared to the 583 in just 2009. So there's a significant jump of women representation in these new companies. The percentage of women in tech roles has risen significantly in Silicon Valley, which is great to hear. However, overall, across the industry, our representation is low, and there has been a drop since from 2014 to 2019. And for minority groups and women specifically, there has been notable progress, but so much still needs to be done. Mike Wirth, a CEO of the Chevron Corporation, has stated that as the workforce continues to evolve, it's really important to continuously rethink, research, and retool what we're doing. And this brings to the table this idea of emotional intelligence. More and more women and people of color are entering the field, and for instance, CEO Alicia Zhang believes that in a leadership style that is based on emotional vulnerability and honesty, really makes a difference in how things are accomplished, and the cultural style of these organizations changes drastically when you put people first and relationships first. AI has the potential really to unite people. And with our human faculties and strengths, we can teach AI to be more inclusive, an equal opportunity enforcer, and global problem solver, rather than a force that separates and discriminates. And here are some examples of what some new women technology companies are doing right now to kind of to lead the pack forward, and how women can be an power of influence in how these new algorithms are being written. So for example, Carolyn Rhodes of Hello Alice innovates machine learning to advance and advise other entrepreneurs in technology. Kayla Fleming of Diaspora AI offers an AI-powered platform for water infrastructure management, and she used to be the only woman or Black person in the room, and that has significantly changed. And now she's actually sitting at the table and making change. Lastly, Lisa Falzoni, co-founder of Athena Security, uses AI to detect guns in public places. And she has lamented that she didn't have a female founder friend before, but now the landscape has drastically changed, all for the better. So what can we do? What can we plan? And what can we set in motion to make these necessary changes? Well, it's a great question. First off, we need to address and acknowledge that AI systems are designed by humans. Each and every initial training set of data that is inputted into the AI format is coming from the human that originally created it. Therefore, the biases that we encounter are already built into the constructs of the algorithm that was meant to speed up our vetting and research process. Once we take this into account, every step we design must take these preconceived biases and inequalities into consideration. We know and understand two things. It's vital to support and promote women in the field of technology and build a female-friendly environment. And two, we need to promote culturally aware and diverse companies. Starting with the end in mind is the first step to creating the change we wish to instill in future generations and in future AI generations. Exploring different solutions and addressing these biases is vital because it will provide more perspective and possibilities moving forward. Promoting mentorship, scholarships, competitions, and even a global network of women and culturally diverse communities to bring these issues forward could influence future generations entering this burgeoning field. In creating a diverse and inclusive workforce, the path will be paved to establishing gender balance and equality and equal opportunity to everyone. And I'm going to include the first video I mentioned, as well as this additional YouTube video on AI bias in tech that you can check out in the S.O.A.P notes. Diversity in the field of technology is important because these insights can be used in the advances of AI technology. We must remember that talent doesn't discriminate and opportunity must be nurtured. Thank you so much for reading this and participating in this topic. It's a really important topic because we are blending our AI technology in everything that we do, especially in healthcare and mental health advocacy today. So the more we get in touch with our built-in biases, the more we can address them on the front end rather than trying to repair them on the back end. All right, I will see you next time, and to your clinical success. Take care.